Back in the 1990s, when I used to listen to radio, there was this amazing yacht race that would travel all around the world. It was a race. It was, I think it was called the Whitbread, and now it's called the Ocean Race. And there was this radio commentator here in New Zealand called Peter Montgomery, and he was the yachting commentator. Okay, and he still is well known for this. And I can still remember listening to the radio, and he'd be come on the radio sports news, and he'd say, "Right, we're going to now listen to Peter Blake, and he's down in the subantarctic, and he's surfing the waves." And he says, and then in the next thing he would say, "Peter, um, Peter, how are you? Where are you?" And it'd be said in this husky, strong voice. And then you hear this crackle of this radio. "Hi, Pete. We're in the middle of the subantarctic oceans. There's waves huge as mountains, and the wind is coming from this direction, and the sailors are handling it okay. And but it's really hard work, and we've seen such and such a yacht off to our port bow, whatever." And we go on, you get a report, and you really, really feel like you were there in the boat with the sailors facing the icebergs and the wild storms, and but it was that question, and he was quite famous for these little statements that he'd say that were yeah, that's Pete Montgomery. How are you? Where are you? And it was just entertaining, but also really interesting to hear what was happening for these sailors. It was high adventure. But these words sort of were an inquiry about the boat and the sailors, where they were, what was happening. Yeah, and I think about those sailors. They were so vulnerable heading out on this race, risking all. It was a huge challenge, and it was long before the days where satellites could pick up exactly where people were. You had to rely on like radio broadcasts and so on to actually know where these boats were. And but it's also kind of a story about you and me. Um, how are you? Where are you? And often when I'm having like a soul talk conversation with somebody, whether one to one, just meeting someone on the street or something, or I online where I'm talking to somebody, I listen. In some ways I say, "How are you? Where are you? How are you right here and now? Um, where are you right here and now in your thoughts and feelings? How is the small boat of your life?" And I recently asked someone that question, and they said that they felt their boat was like taking on water. It was a very vivid description, very accurate. Others might say things like, "I feel like I've been hit by an enormous wave, I've been broadsided, and my boat is reeling." Yeah, or another person might say, "I feel like I'm dead in the water. There is no wind, no movement, no current. I'm becalmed and in the doldrums." Another one might say, "I've just left land. I'm heading towards the unknown, and I see a tremendous storm on the horizon." Lightning, dark, rain, wild. Larry Crabb, I love this little quote. "Every journey begins where you are." Larry Crabb, and I like that idea. And as I wrote this morning, um, I was listening to the birds welcoming the day, and the journey of the day of course, had begun the previous night when I turned off the light and entered into sleep. And I awoke, and I suppose I entered into what God had already been up to while I was resting. And I wondered where Providence had touched down on my little boat. And you can see there's like a ship behind, my little boat behind it, which I'm going to use for a class I'm running at the end of this week. And I opened up my emails, and I saw a lovely email from someone that I gave Soul Talk to yesterday. And I thought of a dear friend who recently, his life's been broadsided because someone in his family has died. And I waited for the sunrise to come up, and I pray I don't have too many headwinds for my little boat of life to sail into. But my truth is, this is me. This is how I am. This is where I am. I don't want to pretend. I want to be somebody else. And at times I want to present myself as being someone else, maybe some kind of superhero. But that's not reality. It's not truth, and God knows it. Another quote from Larry: God meets us where we are, not where we pretend to be or wish we were. My job is to pay attention to where I am. When I enter my reality, my red dot truth, it means God brings his reality, God's truth into mine. Truth is a two-way street. When I avoid my truth, I nod politely, and I might even smile or say amen to when I hear his, or when I hear God's truth. But not much happens. Hi, God. Yeah, good truth. Yeah, and you carry on. Um, God's truth, Larry says, does not set free a pretending or hiding heart. Like, imagine Pete Montgomery, the radio broadcaster I was telling you about, calling out one of those sailors and hearing them say, "Oh, we've got beautiful winds, sunny skies, and all is going well." But in reality, in their truth, in brutal honesty, they are taking on water and have a broken mast. Look, God can't help a pretending or a hiding heart. Why are they not sharing their truth? Why are they living under pretense? Maybe they're sort of engulfed in shame. They should have already mastered everything. I think we all need a few loving people, gentle people, in our lives who will move towards us and ask some very gentle, curious questions that kind of probe under the waterline of first appearances. And God, in providential care, sends people who know how to ask gentle and sometimes not so gentle questions to bring people into reality. Questions like, I see you've got a broken mast. Do you need some help? Or, I see your boat is carrying a cargo of anger. Is that a difficult, unbalanced load to carry? Another one is, have pirates stormed your boat? What have they stolen? Another one is, has your boat hit a rock? Are you stuck on a sandbank? So, how are you and where are you? You may want to email me, barry@turningthepage.co.nz. I'd love to hear from you. Come over to the website, read the post on the website, leave some comments, share this post with others, it really helps. Perhaps you may like to take the class. There's 2 classes I'm running which start at the end of this week. It's about divine providence, God's hand being upon you. And we're going to dig deep into providence. We're going to dig and use this metaphor of the boat that I've got behind me and what it can teach us about how God provides for our every need. Thanks very much.